It's February 17th, 2014. We're here at Balboa Island Museum and Historic Society with Marion Walters. And my first question would be if you would please tell me why Balboa Island holds such a special place in your heart.
Well, it started off as such a memory for my husband. He grew up in Altadena, and as Joyce had said, this was Battle Week down here at Easter time, and he had a friend whose parents owned a place, and so he always came, and this was his dream to be here. And I'll tell you, I've never regretted that we ended up here. So our first little place we kept rented all the time, and it was paid for by the rent. I mean, it didn't cost us anything but the down payment. And then we thought, well, we were doing okay with that, so we thought we'd buy the one we're in now for the same reason. Then all of a sudden one day, Ron says, where we're living in Pasadena, he says, I want to move into that house. Now, mind you, we had 5 children, and this was a 2-bedroom house. And so I said, we're not going to burn our bridges. I said, let's rent the one in Pasadena and see how it works out. And the only way we could buy this house, because we never have been big income people, is because there's a little apartment on the back of it. And so that paid 1/3 of our mortgage, and pretty soon it paid 1/2 of our mortgage, and pretty soon it paid way more than our mortgage. And so that was the only reason we did end up in here. So we moved in with on our youngest daughter's first birthday, and we had 4 children in 4 years, and then had one 7 years later. So she was she was the caboose baby, and there were 2 bedrooms upstairs, and one of them had a built-in double bed bunk bed, which Ron had to break apart to get out of there. And so 3 of the kids were there. And then next to, well, what is now the kitchen was not the kitchen, and it's a very narrow room, and it just fit a bunk bed going one way, and then the baby was in a little, what do you call those, little baby cribs. and so then we added on. So.
Were you a part of that home improvement process?
Oh, absolutely.
With the design and
not so much the design. We needed just something we could afford. And, they're teeny little rooms, but we said, we could have bigger rooms and your kids could share, but no, they each wanted one. So we ended up with 6 bedrooms and a little den, and it worked out well.
It's neat. So. Would you share your favorite Balboa Island story that brings back fond memories, perhaps of that inner child within you?
Well, something that I still marvel about, because you think today how many kids have play dates that are arranged ahead of time. And here our kids had so much freedom. But one of my favorite memories of that was our 4th child, Sean, was in 3rd grade when we came down, or she was just going to start 3rd grade because we came in at the end of August. And right away she met a friend who lived over on Bay Shores. Bay Shores? What's right across the way? Bay Shores?
Dover?
No, right across the bay, that area. Bayside?
Beacon Bay.
Beacon Bay, there we go. So anyway, Debbie lived on Beacon Bay, and all of a sudden one day she rows her boat over and parks it at the public pier, comes and gets Sean. Sean goes down to the public pier, they row back over. When they're finished, she rows her back again. And this was something that happened regularly. And I thought, here's this little girl, 2 little girls in 3rd grade, and they're rowing across the bay by themselves, having a great time. We just gave them so much freedom in those days. So and something else with Sean, she just told us this recently, and it struck me so funny. We were coming down to the beach, for a week or 2, and each summer. And then one day, after Ron said he wanted to move here, he said to the kids, how would you feel about moving to the beach? Well, they thought that was wonderful. Well, Sean said, here we're coming to the beach, we hardly get down here, and you're enrolling us in school. She didn't expect to go to school. She thought she was always going to be just a beach girl.
How cute.
So those are 2 of my best memories with Sean, particularly. So.
You shared that you've worked in academia as well throughout the years. So how did you get plugged into the community through those opportunities?
Well, I had a friend I was teaching in Pasadena, and I had a friend who moved down here, and she went to Orange Coast College, or she got a job at Orange Coast College doing the same thing that I did. And so I went over as soon as we moved down, and I got the job right away. And so I taught at 3 different community colleges over the years for 37 years, but I was always a part-timer, so my retirement is as though I had worked for 8.5 years rather than 37, but I loved what I did, and I keep running into people that used to give my classes, and so.
Once your children did enroll in the schools, did they enjoy that?
They did.
Opportunity?
Yes,
Great.
they did. They did. And, you know, before Promontory Point was built, do you know what?
Right.
Our son was up there almost daily with 2 friends, and one of them being Marla Spance's brother. And they would explore all over there, and they would be looking for rocks and fossils and whatever. So, again, I say they had so much freedom.
Right.
So.
It does seem like a perpetual vacation here, so I can see why that is sensed by many, that it just really provides that community element.
It does. It does.
Would you share with me your earliest memory of Balboa Island? I know you moved here with your husband, but perhaps any earlier encounters, or just that first encounter itself, and shape that story?
Well, when we bought that first little house that I told you about earlier, we had been renting a little cottage on, I think it was on Pearl, but near the South Bay, and it was a very old cottage. I mean, we could see the sand under the floor. We could see the sky through the ceiling. But nevertheless, we just loved the island then, you know, and it was mostly Ron's enthusiasm, and I certainly went along with it. I have to tell you, I always loved the mountains more than the beach, but Ron was always a beach person, and one day when we were engaged, he said, okay, we'll go to the mountains today. So we go through the Malibu hills and end up, as usual, down at the beach. I cried. But once we moved to Balboa Island, this was certainly our place. So.
What year was it that you lived at the cottage? Approximately, that you moved into the cottage?
Oh, the first place we bought, you mean?
Yes.
Well, we never actually lived there. We just would come down for a couple of weeks each summer.
See.
And we bought that, I think, in 1963.
How have you seen change throughout the years?
Well, I think we've all seen cottages go down and what have been called McMansions go up. And that's probably the biggest change, because, you know, people say you must have seen so many changes over the years. Well, almost all the lots were always taken, you know, from the time we first came down, but so many of the cottages are gone, and it's much bigger homes, beautiful homes.
How about the community itself, that change over time? How have you seen that take place?
Well, you know, I'm very involved with the chapel on the island. Have you been in the chapel, Chris?
Just nearby sometimes, yes.
Okay, because it's beautiful. You should take a look at it sometime. So I have friends from there, and of course our neighborhood has always been wonderful, our block. I remember Tina saying that she missed, I mean, she has a gorgeous home, but she missed just the community in our own block. But it has become closer with the ladies in that when I was teaching, there were several women in my class who had started a book club, and they asked if I wanted to join, and I said, not now, but after I retired, I said, can I still come in? Now, they're all my children's ages, these women, and so I did become a part of it, and then so many of them got involved with their children in, once they got to high school, and they had to be taking them to games and this and that, so it started to dwindle. So I asked the woman across the street if she'd like to join our book club, and then she asked the woman next door to her if she wanted to join. So now I think we have five others besides myself on our block who are in the book club, plus Jasmine, who used to live next door to Tina, and so that makes us closer too, because I mean, we drive together, you know, to the book club and talking about the books and saying, did you finish it yet? Do you want this one? You know, so it's all been part of it. And just after we moved down, we had a 4th of July party, and there were just 4 families. One family had 7 children, and we had 5 children, so there's 12 children right there who were all the same ages. And then 2 other families, and then after a couple of years, it was always at our house, and our little front patio and the whole street going across. I'm surprised no one ever got hit, but it pretty soon became a neighborhood thing to be at our house on 4th of July. And then after 30 years of doing that, we just weren't up to continuing it, and so it became a party down the street at Juanita's, where they have a big front yard. But what has amused us is that some of the kids who used to come in the original group have brought their fiancés to sort of get our approval, which really amused me when I learned why they had come, you know. So the one was really really interesting because she met when she was in college in Idaho. She wanted to be part of an international group, and there was just a very small community of black people there, but sure enough, she chose this black man, and she came to the house with him. He was an absolute delight. He was from Tanzania. And, you know, when he left, I said to my husband, what a shame we ever look at color, because this guy was so neat. And then a couple of days later, his parents called to say that they were getting married. And so they live in Tanzania now. But then when they told us they were getting married, she said that's why she had to bring Godfrey over to get your approval on it.
Sounds like a very familial tie with the community. It's so close that you really have strong bonds here.
Yeah.
Did you feel that immediately when you moved? Or was it
Yes,
kind of gradual?
No, it was very fast, because the woman who lived across the street from us, whose name was June Johnson, as soon as we moved in, she came over and she said, come on, you've got to go to the beach with me and meet all the neighbors. And sure enough, I was down at that beach every day during the summer. I mean, every single day. And we would swim 4 blocks down and 4 blocks back. And we started by going across the bay, but then there were so many boats that was harder, so then we would go 4 blocks down and 4 blocks back. And, you know, our jaws got more exercise than anything else. I would just do a little thing like this and yak, yak, yak. And so that absolutely brought people together.
It was easy, through those community gatherings, to meet everyone, or is it just case by case, people just kind of come to your front door and introduce themselves? How is it, those bonds form?
I think most of the bonding started right at the beach. There were a big group of women. I was the youngest at that time, and of course I had to keep an eye on my little one. So, but I think it was that brought us all so close together.
It's lovely. How did you decide to make Balboa Island your home?
Well, once we got here, we knew we wanted to stay. There wasn't much even pondering whether or not to stay or not. We knew this was for us. And of course, we loved that the kids, you know, our kids were in BIYC, all 5 of them were in that. So I spent a lot of the summer down there watching them. One of our daughters was never beaten in the paddleboard.
Wow.
No, Sean. I don't know if Colleen ever got a trophy. She did get ribbons, but...
Did that really shape the community, the BIYC organization really
yes.
develop?
Yes.
All the children's activities really form that as well.
In fact, our oldest daughter's best friend is someone who's very active here, Diane. And you know, she was the only non-sister in her wedding. so yeah, no, they all made friends there.
Do you have any other special holiday memories that relate to Balboa Island? I know you shared the 4th of July being a significant part, but are there others that you signify as just as important?
I love being docent at the open house at Christmas time. I couldn't do it this year because I was just recovering from surgery, but I love doing that. And I also, again, this is something else I stopped because of surgery, and then because my husband doesn't walk too well anymore, we delivered there's a newsletter from called The Bridge.
Right.
And so we delivered for all of Onyx Avenue, the 3 blocks for that. And I always enjoyed doing that too. So, but I really did miss being docent. I hope they'll call me next year.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
It was our first year participating with that this year as volunteers.
Oh,
it's such a significant part of the community. You see how everyone gathers, and a lot of people from outside get to see the beauty of the homes and just
And usually the favorites are the little cottages.
Right,
So,
right.
and almost every year, you know, because I taught in this area for so long, almost every year someone would come in who had been in my class. And one year, it was the last two women, and I said, I know you. They were in my class in 1970.
It's amazing.
And tomorrow, this isn't Balboa Island, so you can block it out, but tomorrow someone's coming over who wrote to me. I haven't seen her for 20 years when she was in my class, and she said, I'd love to go someplace and have coffee with you. And so she's coming tomorrow. I don't think I'd even recognize her, but
Wow.
yeah, so I'll enjoy it nevertheless.
That's wonderful.
So,
Wow. I think that's the beauty of being established in a community for so long.
Mhm.
You can see how all those ties will come together eventually by being a resident here and just
Right.
being so connected. I think that's the value of
Mhm.
building those ties for so long. What a neat legacy to have that.
yeah. Well, one time when I was at the BIYC, someone called me by name, and someone else said, are you Marion Walters? I said, yes. She said, you know what? I'm the only person in Newport Heights who never took your class. I was so amused by that. Of course, I mean, that was an exaggeration, but
Absolutely.
nevertheless, I met a number of women from there. So.
Would you share your favorite story about any celebrities you might have met at Balboa Island?
I don't know as I met them so much as my daughters did. For instance, one of them was doing the, what do they call it, ROPC or something at high schools. So she worked at what was then Macy's, no, what was then Robinson's, and John Wayne used to come in and with his daughter and buy things. And then another daughter of us was good friends with the daughter of someone who regularly played tennis with, what was his wife's name? John Wayne's wife, I can't think. And so,
Pilar.
pardon?
Is it Pilar?
Yeah, with Pilar. And so she went to a party over at his house, and he was dressed all in white, came out looking grand, and his slipper was open, his fly was all open. She said, you know, it was so hard for everyone to be quiet. So, but anyway, so our kids, and then they often saw Buddy Epson at the BIYC. What other celebrity I can't think of.
And it's fascinating to have that history
Mhm.
here. Would you share some of the life-changing events that occurred here at the island?
Well, let's see. That's life-changing events. Just being a part of it. Gosh, I don't know just what to say. We watched one of our daughters have her wedding reception across at the pavilion, you know, and so just being on the ferry and taking pictures, that was lovely. I don't know if it's life-changing. Well, it was life-changing for her. I think one of the things maybe is when anyone is ill on our block, others are there for them. Here, a neighbor of ours just died, and we ended up in the hospital at the same time, but she went home with, what do you call it, a hospice. But the day before I went into the hospital, she's asking what she can do for me. And then, you know, she died not much long after. But so it's the caring, I think, that we've found.
Absolutely.
You know, and people emailing how is Ron today and that kind of thing. So.
It is very unique, especially in this present era where ties are flexible and more independent society. So I think that this community really showcases another way of life that many may not encounter. So I think it's really wonderful what you've experienced here.
Oh, we do too. We do too.
It really is. Do you have a favorite story about a business on Marine Avenue, even if that business does not exist today?
Again, our daughter Sean, well, all but one of our children have had jobs on the island in the various businesses, and Sean was at the Jolly Roger, and she was the taco girl, and so she would come home smelling, you know, of all this oil. But she usually, when she got home, she would take a walk around the island, and at one point, I see in the paper that they caught the fellow who'd been walking naked around the island for so long. They caught him in the alley getting dressed. And so I said something to Sean. She said, oh, I see him often. He passes me. I said, what do you do, Sean? I said, hi. And he says, hi. And I said, why didn't you ever tell me this? She said, because you'd get all excited just the way you're doing right now. Do you remember that story, Sean? He was caught behind the South Bay, or the North Bay alley, getting dressed. Because people had, I guess the police had been on the lookout for him or something. So, so she worked at Jolly Roger. Our son worked over at the banana place, the frozen banana place, and he was only 14 years old. And what really got to me was that he was left at night to take the care of the money, and that bothered me. But he did it. And then one of our daughters worked at, shoot, I can't think of what Gail used to have.
Persimetry? Sandpiper.
No, Sandpiper.
Oh, Sandpiper was the best one.
Yeah, it was a wonderful place, like a 5 and 10 cent store, but that isn't what it was.
Variety store.
Variety store, thank you. I keep losing vocabulary.
Right.
But it was a variety store, and so she worked there. And let's see, where did Susan work? And they all babysat. Our kids all babysat all over this island.
How neat.
So they've all been very involved in it.
Right. You said that you've also been active at your church present here.
Mhm.
How has that shaped the community as well, since it's been there
Well-
for some time?
Well, I'll tell you, people have commented to me that after Mass is over, we have a morning Mass at 4 to 8, and so we're out of there at like 10 after. And people are all there just talking, and someone said, what goes on after your church? Because I see all those people and I hear all that talking. And it's like here, everyone knows everyone, because, we're just a small parish. And so it's very important.
Are most actively living here at the island as well, or is it?
They aren't all on the island by any means, but many are. But probably not more than half of them are on the island, living on the island. So, and our priest who's in charge lives on Onyx also. And he and his mother, who's in her 90s, his mother often spends time at his house. And so they always came to our neighborhood parties, the 4th of July parties and all. And so they became a part of us too, so people have great respect for it.
Right. Is there any other particular memory you'd like to share?
Oh gosh, I'll go home and think, why didn't I tell you this, that, or the other? Getting back to when we first came down, we had company constantly. And so that tapered off. But I think everyone sort of wants to be a part of it. Once they get to Balboa Island, they want to be a part of it.
What is their initial reaction as you have guests visiting? What are the comments that you really pick up on?
Well, I had a friend from up north come down, and she loves to take pictures, and then she makes cards of them. And she just couldn't get over all the blossoms, on the bayfront, walking around the bayfront. And she said, oh, Marion, this is just like living in a fairy tale, She just was so impressed by it. And, other friends who used to come down fairly often would always say, oh gosh, I wish we could live here, So.
Right. Seems to be a place of inspiration for artists alike, and having those art walks, and you can see why it's such a pivotal point to gather here, because it has there's so much material that's been inspired from these gorgeous views, and just there's so much to work off of to creatively I think the sea breeze and there's just.
You should come down sometime for the parade in June, because it's getting to be like the Rose Parade.
Yeah, sure.
The sidewalks just full of people and all, and it takes like an hour and a half just to go over the bridge and down a few blocks, but everyone just loves it. We had Pearl Harbor survivors, and the patio dancers, the patio chair dancers, they're holding their chairs and they're doing it, and the dogs, all the laughs they have, and I can't think what else, but it's always so fun. And we always have the Marines up from Pendleton too, doing the colors, and it's just fun. You should try to make it sometime.
Absolutely. How has that changed over the years, since you've seen probably over the time you've been here? It expand as an event, but is there?
I would just see that we see more people.
Really?
Mhm.
Has it stayed similar as far as its
Right,
concept and design?
and we have bands from the different schools,
Mm,
and little baton twirlers and such and all, so it's a delightful little parade.
absolutely.
So,
Well, thank you very much for your time. This concludes the portion of our interview, and appreciate all the memories you've shared
it
with
was my
us
pleasure,
today.
and I'll go home and I'll say, why didn't I tell them this or that?